Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. For 8 years, Captain Emily Carter's name had disappeared from any military records. Officially, she had disappeared after a top-secret mission in the mountains of Central Asia. Unofficially, she was living undercover in a small coastal town, working as a civilian flight instructor, with a light aircraft as her only companion and the memory of combat as her only ghost. She had chosen anonymity to escape the war, the endless orders, and the loss of friends in combat. Her life was simple: a loft overlooking the ocean, flying lessons for eager teenagers, and evenings repairing old engines. She could finally breathe, until the day a pitch-black military helicopter landed on the tarmac of her small airfield. A messenger bearing an insignia she knew all too well approached. "Captain Carter, your service is required. It is urgent." Emily stared at the man, her heart sinking. She had sworn she would never see that life again. Yet the call of the plane, the cockpit, and the impossible mission was still there, etched in her bones. War, she thought, never forgets you. She took a last breath of salt air, glanced back at her civilian plane, her refuge, and felt the adrenaline rush. 8 years of anonymity were about to end. The shadow of the eagle was returning to the battlefield, ready to take to the skies again, and to face enemies who had no idea she was still there, more determined than ever. Emily Carter watched the helicopter depart, taking with it the messenger and his irreversible order. She felt a familiar mix of fear and excitement. Her old life had just knocked at her door. 8 years of anonymity, of relative tranquility, were about to disappear. In her loft, the walls, covered with photos of vintage airplanes and civilian flight trophies, seemed to be watching her. Her fingers brushed against the models of fighters she had once flown. She knew that if she accepted, she would be plunging back into a world where every decision could be her last. At the airfield, his former military instructor, Colonel Marcus Hayes, was waiting for her. "Emily, this is serious. You are the only one capable of this mission," he said, his gaze hard but respectful. He handed her a thick folder. Inside, satellite images and reports detailing an impending conflict in a volatile area of the globe. Emily quickly scanned the documents. The faces of civilians, pilots, and soldiers in danger flashed before her eyes. She felt the tension rise in her veins. Her instincts, honed by years of combat, screamed that staying here was impossible. She put down the file and took a deep breath. 8 years had passed, but when danger calls, some of us can't stay back. Emily looked up, fixed the colonel, and whispered, "All right. I'm back on duty." The sea breeze blew through the open windows, as if to encourage him. The eagle was back. Emily Carter hadn't set foot in a military cockpit in 8 years. The hangar echoed with the roar of engines and the shouted orders of young pilots she might once have considered her students. But here, every second counted, every mistake could be fatal. The Colonel Marcus Hayes led her to AF-22 Raptor, the same model she'd once piloted, but with technologies she'd have to quickly relearn. The holographic displays, the automated weapons systems, the mission protocols had evolved. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She'd always been quick to adapt, but this time she had to combine instinct with cutting-edge technology. "You have 30 minutes to prepare. Then you're in charge," Hayes announced. In the cockpit, the seat seemed to call her back like an old friend. The handles, the screens, the buttons, everything was in its place, yet different. Emily took a deep breath and let her years of experience take over. Memories of past combats flooded back, the fear, the adrenaline, the loneliness of being a pilot in the sky, but also the feeling of total control. The mission: intercept an unknown drone that was approaching dangerously close to a strategic civilian area. Her teammates were young, inexperienced, and entirely dependent on her. Emily activated the engines. The Raptor roared, and her heart beat in unison. As she gained altitude, the drone's coordinates appeared on the screen. Adrenaline transformed her into the version of herself she thought she'd left behind. Every maneuver was instinctive, every decision quick and precise. The drone seemed to anticipate her movements, but Emily outwitted it with her unparalleled experience. After a tense dogfight, the drone was neutralized without civilian casualties. The young pilots looked on, impressed and relieved. Emily, for her part, felt the weight of 8 years of oblivion lift. She had once again become the combat pilot she should never have stopped being. But even though this victory seemed simple, she knew it was only the beginning. More dangerous forces were brewing, and her return to duty would not go unnoticed. Emily Carter hadn't even touched down after her successful mission when another alert sounded in the command center. The screens flashed, showing suspicious movements near an Allied base abroad. But this time, it wasn't just a drone. Someone knew her tactics, almost as if they'd studied her style. The Colonel Marcus Hayes approached, his face serious. "Emily, there's someone watching you. They know your fighting methods and your flying habits." Those words stirred buried memories, past missions where she'd been betrayed, where every move was scrutinized by the enemy. 8 years of anonymity hadn't protected her from the shadow of the past. Someone was after her, and that someone knew exactly how to unsettle her. Emily considered her options. Her instincts told her the threat wasn't just coming from outside, there were leaks within her ranks. Perhaps a double agent, perhaps an enemy who knew her history all too well. She had to be careful. That night, she climbed into the Raptor, alone this time. The stars twinkled above her, but in the shadows, an unknown figure watched. Emily knew the game had changed. It wasn't just about missions or drones anymore, it was a personal hunt. Her mind analyzed every scenario, every possible trajectory. She had to anticipate before the enemy struck. For the first time in 8 years, Emily felt that her skills were about to be pushed to the limit, and that her opponents weren't just machines or military threats, but ghosts from her past. As she hovered silently above enemy territory, Emily knew this mission would be different. Every decision, every move, every attack could bring her closer to the truth, or bring her down. The Eagle hadn't just taken back the skies, it was now hunted. Emily Carter knew this was no longer just a routine mission. Her analysis confirmed that someone, or something, had anticipated her every move in enemy airspace. But who? And why now, after 8 years of silence? The Colonel Marcus Hayes presented her with a limited file, blurry videos, satellite images, and reports of precise attacks on several Allied bases. One constant emerged: an experienced, aggressive pilot capable of extreme maneuvers, someone who knew Emily's fighting style inside out. "Emily," Hayes said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I think you're facing someone who's been studying you. Maybe for years." Doubt and tension mingled in her mind. Emily knew the perfect enemy: fast, unpredictable, intelligent. She took the Raptor and climbed, following the provided coordinates. Her heart was beating faster than she had felt in years. The adrenaline, familiar and comforting, reminded her why she had chosen this profession. Suddenly, a red blip appeared on her radar screen. She immediately recognized the flying style: aggressive, calculated, precise. Someone was toying with her, testing her reflexes. The hunt began. Every enemy maneuver was a challenge, every acceleration a warning. Emily had to be faster, more cunning. Above a narrow valley, the two planes crossed paths. The aerial combat was intense: loops, tight turns, and lightning-fast acceleration. Emily remembered every technique she had learned in the past, every tactic that had saved her life. But the opponent was formidable. Finally, thanks to an unpredictable change of direction and her intimate knowledge of the Raptor, Emily managed to lose her attacker, who disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. She no longer saw him on her monitors, but she knew it was only a pause. Back at base, Hayes was waiting for him, worried. "Have you seen him?" he asked. Emily shook her head, her gaze hard and focused. "Yes, and this is just the beginning. He or she knows all my techniques. This time, it's not an ordinary mission. It's personal." The shadow of her first true adversary now loomed over her. Emily understood that to survive and protect those she loved, she would have to go further than ever before. The sky was no longer just a battlefield, it had become an arena, and the enemy knew her every move. After the aerial confrontation with her mysterious adversary, Emily Carter was back at base, but the sense of safety was non-existent. Every sound, every vibration of her phone, every movement around her could conceal a threat. 8 years of anonymity had been erased in a split second. The Colonel Marcus Hayes was waiting for her in his office, a file under his arm. "Emily, we've analyzed the radar images and combat data. There's something you need to see." Emily approached the screen. Screenshots showed incredibly precise flight sequences and trajectories, all matching her own past techniques. "It's like this person knows everything about me," she murmured. An intercepted note from an encrypted communication caught his attention, a coded name, Shadow Hawk. The enemy was organized, methodical, and above all, personal. Someone who knew her intimately, able to predict her reactions. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. She remembered the classified missions she had completed before disappearing. Enemies she thought destroyed, contacts betrayed, secrets buried. All of it came flooding back. The Shadow Hawk wasn't just an adversary, it was a reminder of her past, a ghost she thought she'd left behind. Emily spent the night poring over the data, charting her opponent's every move, every interception, and every potential weak point. She understood that to survive, she would have to outdo herself. Not just as a pilot, but as a strategist, a detective, a warrior ready for anything. At dawn, she climbed into her Raptor, ready to test the limits of her preparation. Every maneuver, every turn, every acceleration was training for the real confrontation that was approaching. The shadow of the Shadow Hawk still loomed, but Emily knew she had to become faster, smarter, more unpredictable. For the first time in 8 years, the silence of her retreat had been broken. And this time, she wasn't just going to respond to the war, she was going to take her destiny back into her own hands. Emily Carter knew that staying on the defensive wouldn't be enough. The Shadow Hawk knew her techniques, anticipated her moves. To win, she had to turn the tables. She decided to set a trap, using her years of experience to transform the sky into a strategic arena. The Colonel Marcus Hayes helped him plan the operation. They chose an isolated area, high above rugged mountains, where no civilians could be endangered. The plan was simple, but dangerous: lure the Shadow Hawk into a predetermined area and force its adversary to reveal its methods and coordinates. Emily climbed into her Raptor, her hands on the controls as if she were reuniting with an old friend. Every movement was precise, calculated. She simulated a routine mission, sending out erroneous radio signals and coordinates to trick the enemy. Every turn, every loop, every sharp climb was a decoy. And then, as expected, the radar flashed, a rapid, aggressive blip, perfectly synchronized with her movements. The Shadow Hawk had fallen for the trap. Emily activated the countermeasures, carefully observing the opponent's reactions. She analyzed every maneuver, every sign, noting strengths and weaknesses. After an intense and methodical battle, the enemy was forced to leave the skies, leaving behind downloadable data on its communications network. Emily smiled beneath her helmet. Finally, a concrete clue. The Shadow Hawk had a weakness, and now she knew where to look. Back at base, Hayes congratulated her. "You did it, Emily. You're finally ahead of the curve." Emily looked through the recovered data. Among the intercepted files, one name kept repeating itself: Lex Morgan. Emily's heart sank. A name she knew, a name linked to her military past, to betrayals she thought forgotten. The game had changed. The Shadow Hawk wasn't just another anonymous enemy. It was someone who had waited for the exact moment to strike, and now Emily knew she would have to face not only a formidable pilot, but also the ghosts of her past. The information she'd recovered about Lex Morgan burned in Emily Carter's mind. The name evoked memories she'd wanted to forget: a once close comrade, a brilliant pilot turned traitor, whose jealousy and ambition had driven him to join enemy forces. Emily knew a confrontation was inevitable. The Colonel Marcus Hayes planned a risky mission with her: locate Lex Morgan and force a confrontation on controlled ground. Emily wasn't just motivated by the mission, it was now personal. She had to understand why Morgan had become the Shadow Hawk and why he was hunting her after all these years. The night sky was clear. Emily climbed into her Raptor, the stars reflecting the tension in the cockpit. Her thoughts vacillated between strategy and painful memories. She knew every maneuver, every decision could be her last. Then, on the radar, the red blip appeared. Lex Morgan. Emily engaged the pilots with precision. The two engaged in a spectacular aerial duel, with tight turns and lightning-fast accelerations, each maneuver testing the other's control. But Emily noticed something different. Morgan wasn't just aggressive, he was trying to communicate. Through coded signals, Morgan revealed his true motivation, a grudge from several missions where Emily had been recognized for her successes and Morgan relegated to the shadows. The Shadow Hawk wasn't just an adversary, it was a personal obsession turned into a war. Emily listened, analyzed, then responded calmly. She could no longer afford to be angry, only strategy could prevail. With a bold and unexpected maneuver, she forced Morgan out of the sky, temporarily leaving him out of action. Back at base, Emily knew it was just a battle. Lex Morgan was still there, his motives clear and dangerous. But for the first time in 8 years, Emily felt she had regained control. She was no longer just a pilot forced to return, she was a fighter ready to face the past, the present, and the enemies that lurked within. The sky was no longer just an arena. It was now a field of revelations, and Emily knew that each next mission would be more dangerous than the last. After her confrontation with Lex Morgan, Emily Carter knew the enemy wasn't just personal, there was a larger plan at play. Data recovered from the Shadow Hawk contained encrypted files, strategic maps, and intercepted communications indicating a coordinated operation targeting multiple Allied bases. The Colonel Marcus Hayes informed him, "Emily, it's not just Lex Morgan anymore. He's working for a clandestine network capable of destabilizing our operations. If they succeed, the losses will be catastrophic." Emily felt the weight of responsibility fall back on her shoulders. 8 years of retirement, of willful oblivion, had just vanished. Her role went beyond simple aerial combat, she had to dismantle a complex network before it struck. She spent hours analyzing every file, every intercepted communication. Little by little, a picture emerged: corrupt allies, mercenary pilots, and Lex Morgan as the main pawn. Everything was orchestrated to provoke her, test her, and push her to reveal her most secret strategies. Emily decided to take the initiative. She planned a daring mission: infiltrate enemy territory with a small squadron, destroy key infrastructure, and obtain evidence to neutralize the network. Every detail had to be perfect. One mistake and she would not only put her life in danger, but also those of her teammates and innocent civilians. In the hangar, the young pilots watched Emily with admiration and concern. "You know what you're doing, don't you?" one of them asked. She smiled slightly, hiding the anxiety she felt. "Yes. But we have to be faster, smarter, and more unpredictable than ever." As the sun rose over the airfield, Emily climbed into her Raptor. She knew the upcoming mission wasn't just a test of her piloting skills, it was a battle of wits, strategy, and courage. The clandestine network didn't yet know how far she was willing to go to stop them. The sky stretched out before her, vast and threatening. And Emily Carter, the Eagle returned after 8 years in shadow, was ready to plunge into it for the last time. Emily Carter and her squadron had infiltrated enemy territory, flying low over the mountains to avoid radar. Every turn, every acceleration was calculated. Adrenaline pulsed through their veins, but Emily remained focused. One false step and the entire operation would be compromised. Intercepted communications had suggested that Lex Morgan wouldn't be alone. Emily sensed something was amiss. And she was right. Halfway through the mission, one of her squadron's pilots, Lieutenant Ryan Blake, began to act strangely. Its trajectories were shifted, its responses delayed. Emily frowned. Was it fatigue or betrayal? Suddenly, missile fire was launched from an enemy position they thought was neutralized. The squadron was trapped. Emily reacted immediately, executing complex maneuvers to avoid the attack. She then realized the truth: someone in their ranks had transmitted their positions. Lex Morgan, behind his control screens, watched the scene with a cruel smile. His plan was not only to eliminate Emily, but to sow discord and confusion within his squadron. With calm and precision, Emily regained control of the situation. She ordered her loyal pilots to regroup and return fire. The ensuing aerial combat was intense, tight loops, extreme acceleration, and strategic firefights. Every second counted. Eventually, Emily managed to neutralize the enemy missiles and regroup her squadron. Ryan Blake was intercepted and taken into custody upon their return to base. The shock of the betrayal weighed heavily on them all, but Emily knew this lesson was necessary. In this war, there was no room for naivete. Back at the airfield, Hayes congratulated her, but the worry was evident on his face. "Emily, this network is bigger than I expected. They have eyes everywhere." Emily nodded. She knew Lex Morgan wouldn't settle for tactical failures. His revenge would be more calculated, more personal, and she had to prepare for the final confrontation. The sky, hitherto their homeland, had become a field of traps and secrets. And Emily, the returned eagle, knew that the decisive battle was approaching. The sky was dark, dotted with threatening clouds. Emily Carter flew over the area designated for the final confrontation. Lex Morgan, the Shadow Hawk, awaited them with a fleet of experienced fighters and sophisticated defense systems. This time, it wasn't just a mission, it was a personal revenge, a pilot duel where every move could decide life or death. The Colonel Marcus Hayes, at the base, was watching the radars tensely. "Emily, this is your moment. Show them what it means to underestimate the eagle." Emily took a deep breath, her hands gripping the controls. She thought about her 8 years of withdrawal, the losses, the betrayals, and the battles past. Everything converged now in this precise moment. She activated the Raptor, diving into the fight with unparalleled precision and audacity. The fighting was fierce. Tight turns, lightning-fast accelerations, daring maneuvers. Emily anticipated Lex Morgan's every move, using everything she had learned, everything she had experienced. But Morgan was no ordinary opponent, every attack seemed calculated, every dodge thought out in advance. As they approached the heart of the battle, Emily spotted an opening, a small passage through Morgan's defenses. With courage and strategy, she executed a risky maneuver, surprising Lex and disabling his primary systems. The confrontation reached its climax when Morgan attempted one last direct attack. Emily reacted instinctively, using her complete command of the Raptor to avoid the killing blow and permanently incapacitate her former comrade-turned-enemy. On land, Emily's squadron celebrated their victory. Lex Morgan was captured, and the clandestine network dismantled thanks to the information they had recovered. The sky, witness to so many battles, finally regained its calm. Emily stood on the airfield and watched the sun rise behind the mountains. 8 years of silence, fear, and seclusion had just ended. She had taken to the skies again, faced her past, and triumphed. Colonel Hayes approached, a proud smile on his face. "Welcome back, Emily. The sky is still yours." Emily smiled, feeling the wind on her face and the freedom she had always loved. She was no longer just a fighter pilot, she was a symbol of courage, resilience, and mastery. The eagle had returned to the sky, and this time, nothing and no one could drive her away.